We are so lucky. We can go to the grocery store abundantly stacked with food products beyond my wildest imagination.
Let's see what a bushel looks like.
This is a world with a growing population.
There's 22 acres in this field. I'd like to get it done today. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Agriculture is big business and big science in Indiana. On this episode, we follow some of Indiana's top crops, from the plants in the field to the finished products. Follow me. It's time for another expedition. Each season, farmers and scientists work to grow more and more food for the masses. The science behind this work is called agriculture.
Indiana Expeditions with Rick Crosslin is made possible with the generous support of Telamon Corporation. As the developer of the 162-acre solar farm at the Indianapolis International Airport, Telamon strives to simplify the joy of science for children worldwide.
To me, agriculture is the science of growing things. In my backyard, I like to do science by growing these vegetables that I hope will end up on my dining room table. Things are looking pretty good. In the U.S., over 900 million acres are used for agriculture. The acre is a classic measurement used in farming. It's 4,840 square yards. For those young scientists out there, an acre is 4,046.86 square meters. 4 acres is about equal to 3 football fields. You know, I only have about $20 invested in my garden, but farmers today literally have millions of dollars invested in seed to feed the world. Indiana plays a large part in agricultural history. The land in Indiana has always been important to provide food for the people that lived here. In the early days, it was stone tools and hunters and gatherers. About 10,000 years ago, people turned those same stone tools into agriculture. Today, the technology is a lot different than the early stone tools. My friend Rocky is a farmer. His father farmed the land before him, and his father's father before that. Long before his family, Native Americans lived and even farmed here. Over the years, Rocky's family has collected stone tools from the past. This is quite a collection. I take it you didn't collect all of these yourself, did you?
Not one of them. My great uncle Joe did.
Do you know much about them?
I don't know anything about it.
Well, I see these are all from Indiana. We have projectile points, and you have drills, you have these banner stones. This is quite a collection. I tell you, we ought to take this to someone who knows more about it, and would you be interested in learning more about it?
That'd be fine.
All right. To learn more about Rocky's collection, I brought the artifacts to the Indiana State Museum. I'm here with the State Museum's archaeologist, Michelle Greenan. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Well, what do you think about this collection?
Yeah, this is really impressive. This is one of the funnest parts of my job, is to be able to look at collections like this. Folks that have been walking in their fields their whole lives and have amassed these really cool collections. So this is an exciting bit for me.
Well, this came from a field out in Avon, Indiana. There are farmers. Are there things here that have to do with farming?
You've got one really good piece that's really hinting towards food production, food gathering, and that kind of thing. And that's actually your ceramic piece over here.
Okay.
That could have been done for cooking. It could have been done for storage. That definitely has to do with food production.
I'm pretty sure that this was used for digging in the dirt, like a hoe.
No. That is not a hoe. This is a hoe.
Whoa.
That is a classic hoe found in southern Indiana, southwestern Indiana.
What crops were associated with this?
Corn.
Corn.
That is associated with
Wow.
heavy corn and heavier agriculture.
And so this would be direct evidence
Yep.
that corn has
Yeah.
been around
And
for a long
that
time.
corn was very important, absolutely.
Did you know corn is known as maize to most of the world?
Corn is an amazing plant. Originating from Central America, the plant spread to parts of North America and is now grown all over the world due to its ability to grow in diverse climates. Over 332 million metric tons of corn is grown in the United States alone. Since 1997, most of the corn grown in the U.S. is genetically modified to provide the best yield. Ag scientists are always working to engineer better corn. Time to visit Rocky again to learn a little more.
Well, I found the cornfield. All I need to do now is find the farmer.
Right here, Rick.
This corn looks a lot higher than knee-high by the 4th of July. Is it ready to be cut down?
Pretty much here in the next couple weeks. The part that I want is right there, minus the cob. Each one of these hairs, I call it silk, represents one kernel of grain on this cob.
This whole plant started with one seed.
One seed.
Many plants start from a seed.
I'm trying to dig up and see if there's a seed down here, right?
If you dig down to the roots, you can often find the seed coat.
We're almost there.
With corn, it's a little easier because the seed coat is pretty tough. Even some of the largest plants start out as a tiny seed.
This is pretty heavy. You transport this whole thing just like this?
No. We have a combine that threshes it. The combine will take the grain off the cob.
That takes a lot of power just to break that off.
Yes, and a combine will do this in about 3 seconds.
The combine harvester is one of the most important labor-saving inventions in all of agriculture. This machine combines 3 actions: reaping, threshing, and winnowing into a single process. In 1940, a farmer needed to produce enough food to feed about 19 people. Today, that number is closer to 200 people, and it continues to grow.
What do you think your grandfather would do?
Well, he's not back so old that they had the Indians, they put the fish in the hole.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that story.
Yep. Back in his day, if you had 100 bushel an acre of corn, that was great. Today, you want 200 or more. There's 22 acres in this field here, and you get out in the western part of the state, fields out there 200 or 300 acres, one field.
Farmers like Rocky Turner work year-round to make sure they are making the best decisions to get the most out of their harvest.
Okay. That, my friend, is a bushel of corn, about 56 pounds.
If all goes well, Rocky will have about 5,500 of these after harvesting this cornfield. But his corn isn't used for what you might think.
Is this for eating? Would I be able to eat this?
No.
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 What do
You'd
you
have to have a good set of teeth if you did.
Where's this going to end up?
This will probably go to some kind of animal feed.
Animal feed is one of the most common uses for Indiana's corn. Other uses include grocery items, surgical dressings, cosmetics, batteries, and even fuel for cars.
To understand where corn goes next, I'm here at the Poet Biorefining in Cloverdale, Indiana, where they take corn and make it into ethanol and some pretty amazing products.
A biorefinery is a good term for what we do here. It's taking a bioproducts such as corn and refining it into multiple high-value products.
Corn from all over the state is trucked into this plant.
It's whole kernels like this. It's a number 2 corn specifically. Farmers around the area and elevators sell it to us.
The load is probed to make sure that the moisture levels are within the correct range.
We take the corn, we grind it into small particles, and then we use chemicals and enzymes and yeast to convert it into ethanol.
The corn is unloaded and transported by an elevator into the large grain storage bins.
We then separate the ethanol from the corn solids, and with the corn solids we make feed products and corn oil and corn syrup.
We're on top of the elevators. What's below us right now?
We're standing on a whole bunch of corn, Rick.
There's like 3 big giant elevators. How much corn do they hold?
We can hold 2 million bushels of corn, over 2 million.
2 million bushels. That'll make a lot of ethanol.
That will make a lot of ethanol. The bins have a system to keep it at a certain moisture content, keep it from getting moldy, preserve it.
Yeah, it's kind of, so you don't want it just to get wet and stay in one place and start to ferment before it gets over there.
That would be bad for our business.
The corn is taken from the storage bins into the hammer mills for grinding. Scientists add water, chemicals, and yeast to the ground up corn.
The mixture, it's called mash or beer.
This mixture is ideal for fermentation. Once the mash is fermented, the mixture is taken to the distillery.
We purify it in order to get high purity ethanol. It's heated by natural gas and it boils to make ethanol vapor. Ethanol is separated from stillage. The ethanol comes out of the top and the stillage goes to the bottom.
Cool, so it kind of separates it. You're saving everything.
Yep.
Ethanol's going this way, and the stillage is going that way to be turned into what?
The stillage is turned into animal feed after drying. Ethanol trucks will come in empty. They will fill up on ethanol, about 8,000 gallons, and then drive away.
Biorefining is making fuel for machinery and making fuel for our farm animals too.
Did you know 40% of the U.S. corn supply is used to produce ethanol?
Most of the corn we see in the fields of Indiana is used to make something else. For example, ethanol. Millions of different products contain corn derivatives. But what about the corn you see in the grocery store? That's called sweet corn, and I'm growing some right here. And this is ready to eat right off the stalk. There's another popular Indiana corn product that comes almost ready to eat. It just needs a little help to come out of its shell. And maybe a movie too. Well, thank you.
Okay, I'm in Ramsey, Indiana, and I found Ramsey popcorn. Now I need to find Cousin Willie.
Who the heck you looking for?
I'm looking for Cousin Willie.
Well, you got him right here.
Oh, great. So, Cousin Willie, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Rick.
And is this a popcorn field?
It is. And it's supposed to be at least knee-high by the 4th of July, so what do you think?
I think you're ahead of the game on this one. So what can you tell me about this popcorn?
I'd rather have my field man, Steve Wetzel, go over that with you, because you got to have a lot of help at a factory like this to make things happen, and he's been with us for over 40 years.
All right. Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Doing good.
This is a popcorn field. How's it different?
Well, a popcorn field is different, only really in the tassel when it comes out. If I didn't know it was popcorn, I couldn't tell you today. When it does tassel out, it will come out in the shape of a fleur-de-lis. It'll also be a different color than regular corn that you see growing in the fields. Popcorn doesn't really take anything special. I mean, yes, you have to be careful, get it planted right, use the right nutrients, the right chemicals. You can grow popcorn in your garden, in the backyard, I mean, wherever. I mean, it's a corn plant. So if you plant sweet corn in your garden, you can plant popcorn in your garden.
When you harvest a lot of popcorn, you also need to store a lot of popcorn.
When it comes from the field, it's usually too wet to use, meaning the moisture's too high.
So you have to go inside of each of these bins to measure the moisture?
Actually, no. We now have a system that has cables inside the bin to measure moisture, temperature, if there's a hot spot in the grain, spoilage, and all of it is reported back to a system we can log into on any computer, tablet, or phone. I believe currently we have 29 million pounds.
29 million pounds is a year's worth for Cousin Willie.
So we've been in the field. Is there any science to popcorn?
Rick, there's a whole lot of science on popcorn. That's why I've got a food science lab man in the lab so we could go check it out and he can tell you all about it.
Is it far?
It's only a couple minutes away, so hop on the back and let's head on over there.
You got it. I got a pass.
Hi, I'm Nathan Ballard. I'm the lab manager here at Ramsey Popcorn.
Well, I brought some popcorn for us to pop, Nathan, and so will this pop?
I'm afraid it won't. That is dent corn in most fields in Indiana, but we do have some popcorn here that you can pop. There are quite a few differences, and I'd be glad to show you. If you hold it up next to a piece of dent corn, you can see that dent corn is much larger and actually has a thinner, softer pericarp.
What makes a popcorn kernel pop?
Well, it's basically a very small pressure vessel. It has a very hard and shiny pericarp, or hull, as most people call it. As it heats up, the moisture expands inside there.
So that kernel, pressure, pop.
Exactly.
And if it had a hole in it, no pressure.
Right. If the hole's small enough, it might pop a little bit, but that's where you get the half pops.
Ramsey Popcorn uses an iodine test to keep an eye on those unpoppable seeds. Kernels that aren't airtight soak up the iodine and turn dark. Lab technicians also test the volume of a batch by popping and measuring the corn using this huge graduated cylinder.
There's a lot of science that goes into this, but there's really one test that I like to do, and
I'll join you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great test. And that's a great popcorn.
And it's actually one of the most important tests. We make sure we taste all of it.
Hey, Cousin Willie, thanks. I've learned a lot about popcorn today.
Well, Rick, thanks for coming out, and I got something to take with you. Enjoy this at your next movie.
Hey, I can watch a lot of movies with this. Thanks a lot.
All right, well, have a great trip home.
Popcorn man, you have to agree, corn is a pretty important crop in Indiana. Another crop that has a lot of uses is the soybean.
I got to ask you a question. This corn over here is not doing very well.
No, that's not doing very well. That's soybeans over there.
Oh, that's not corn?
No.
Well, let's go take a look at that next. I don't remember eating a lot of soybeans last week.
No, probably not, but you probably had some food that had soybeans in it.
How do you know when these are ripe and ready to go?
Well, you want the stem, no leaves, the leaves will fall off on the ground, and you want the pods brown. If you bite into it and it cracks, they're pretty much ready.
What if you bite into them and they're soggy?
They're not ready.
Not a bad taste. Kind of tastes like a crayon.
There's a reason it tastes like a crayon. Soy is used to make crayons. Maybe the real question should be, why do we all know what crayons taste like? Just remember, a curious mind goes great with a career in ag science.
I like to farm. When you like to farm, you enjoy planting seeds, watching a crop grow. It's that full cycle that lasts a year, from planting to growth to harvest to resting in the wintertime and doing it all over again next year.
Ag tech is in a constant state of advancement.
It tells me the average of the field so far, the total bushels I've collected on this load, and how many acres we've actually harvested. You only shoot up there when the numbers are high. We don't want to admit that anything's lousy once in a while.
Soybean farmers are not only increasing yield, but working to develop crops that are healthier. The goal is to eliminate things that we know aren't good for us, like trans fats. New soybeans have been developed that produce a more stable oil, eliminating trans fats that were created when soybean oil is processed to make it more stable. Today's farm equipment can even drive on autopilot.
That's controlling the steering wheel, and the actual little motor that's actually turning my steering wheel is right here.
Farmers have a lot at stake each season.
And as climate changes, how is that going to affect the output of our crops? We're going to see a lot of volatility over the next period of time. Some years we're going to have an abundant supply. We're going to have a record production, prices will be cheap, and it'll be easy. Other years may be affected by dry weather or even too wet a weather. Are we going to produce enough for feed, food, and fuel? I suspect that availability of crude oil in the decades to come is probably going to become less. How are we going to produce enough energy? Can we produce enough energy? It may transition more to wind and solar. I would think that we're going to have to end up using all the tools in the toolbox.
Every year is a little different than the last, and farmers always try to stay ahead of changing conditions.
We are so lucky in the United States. We are so lucky. We can go to the grocery store and we have shelves abundantly stacked with food products beyond my wildest imagination. And so we start to take all that for granted. But in reality, this is a world with a growing population. There's a sizable portion of people living on $1 or $2 a day. And so the idea that we have to produce more food at an economic level that all people can afford it. We have to do it sustainably. The world's not getting any bigger. There's more people. We're expected that by 2050 we will have an additional 2.3 billion people. 2.3 billion people. Without the advances of biotechnology that we've seen in the last 20 years and that we're going to see in the next 20 years, I can't imagine how we're ever going to produce enough food.
In life, you might occasionally need a doctor, a lawyer, or a police officer. But every day, you want to eat. You need a farmer.
You know, the sky's the limit, I think, on imagination. Dream big. If you really like science and engineering, wow, you've got all this equipment you can start to design if you're an engineer. And maybe someday we'll be growing food in outer space. I think that science could be pretty exciting for a kid that's thinking about what they want to do in the world. So I think agriculture is a fast-growing industry right now, and it's not farm kids that's filling that niche. It's kids that are interested in basic sciences and little imagination, and they're going, wow, I can do that, and I can work in agriculture at the same time.
A soybean is a legume. Other legumes include alfalfa, clover, peas, and peanuts.
For our last investigation of agriculture in Indiana, let's check out the tomato. The tomato is another top crop in Indiana, and one of its biggest uses, ketchup.
Here in Madison County, Indiana, folks know a thing or two about tomatoes, whether they're used in a favorite chili recipe or to bring awareness for a good cause, like a fun run to help supply food banks.
So Stewie, isn't it about time you showed me where ketchup is made? Are you driving or am I doing the driving? I'll do the driving. Growing tomatoes in the field is a big job, but the work is not over. Next comes the processing plant and truckloads of tomatoes.
You might think finding enough room to store and process this many tomatoes would be challenging. But Red Gold needs all of those tomatoes for its vast line of products. Americans purchase 10 billion ounces of ketchup annually, which translates to roughly 3 bottles per person per year. But how exactly do you make ketchup? There can be a number of variations in ketchup recipes. Whether you like yours sweet, tangy, or salty, there's a ketchup to satisfy just about any taste bud. Dedicated workers with the help of technology thoroughly clean and prepare each tomato for processing. One of the starting blocks for making ketchup is tomato paste. Red Gold will go through 300 cubes a day. That's a lot of tomatoes.
This is the batch kettle where all the ingredients are brought together before it's sent on its way to turn into ketchup. While all of this is going on, scientists at Red Gold test the ketchup to make sure it's the best it can be. One of the tests is for viscosity. This is basically checking the consistency of the product. Viscosity is the measure of a fluid's resistance to flow. Having the right viscosity is how ketchup sticks to your fry.
Every time we make a batch of ketchup, it's exactly the same as the last time. That's where our goal is, and we've become very efficient at that.
Just like on a busy multi-lane highway, these bottles appear to be in a rush to get somewhere fast. Machines make quick work of the wrapping and securing of the cargo. From here, the ketchup will be delivered to schools, amusement parks, and to your local grocery store.
Did you know tomatoes originated in the Andes Mountains of South America? The name comes from the Aztec Xiomotl, which means plump thing with a navel.
I hope you've learned just a little bit about how important agriculture is to Indiana and how important Indiana is to agriculture. I'm Rick Crosslin. Join me on the next expedition.
For more information and extra content, visit WFYI.org and just search Indiana Expeditions.
Indiana Expeditions with Rick Crosslin is made possible with the generous support of Telamon Corporation. As the developer of the 162-acre solar farm at the Indianapolis International Airport, Telamon strives to simplify the joy of science for children worldwide.